Hello again. In this video, we will be talking about React State. As far as the documentation is concerned, state and life cycle are covered in part 5 of main concepts. But I think uh, although they are closely related concepts, they are sufficiently important and sufficiently broad that each of them merits a video for themselves. So in this video, we're going to be covering state, and in the subsequent video, we will be covering life cycle. Subsequent video, whatever. Okay. Uh, okay. And as for the coding example, we will be sticking with what we see in the documentation. Let's write up a quick element. We'll call this date element, and we will return a little React element. And then inside this, we're going to do we're going to write the date. Today's date is, and we want to be passing the date through props ideally, and let's hope that the parent passes in some date, props dot today, and instead of JSX element, as it was in the previous video, we're going to return. Maybe I want to use this function later, so I'm going to comment it out and keep it aside. And so JSX element, I'm going to pass in the date element, like so. Okay, and I'm going to be passing in the prop today, like so. Let's see what it looks like now. Oops, objects are not valid as React child. It says you passed me an object. This is not what I'm okay with. Get locale string. Is that is it to locale date string? Okay, that's it. This is a function. Yeah, I think it's a function. Okay. This is a string, and I think this should work. Let's try again. Okay, perfect. It says today's date is 23/12/2020. Now, you see there's a problem over here. The problem is when, say, the day changes. Today is 23rd in Singapore. It's only 1:47 a.m. Now, picture a scenario where I was making this video at, say, 11:47 a.m. in 11:47 p.m. rather. In 13 minutes after the time of my recording the video, the date would change. The date should ideally increment by 1 day, right? And for that to happen, this particular function has to be rerun. It has to be rerun because the props have to change. This prop was passed in when the element got first rendered, and because the date changed, the props have to be passed in one more time. And we don't want that. We want to be in a situation where every component takes care of what it's displaying by itself. We don't want to be dealing with date from the outside. We want date element to deal with its date by itself. How do we accomplish that? We accomplish that using React State. And before we introduce React State, we're going to introduce classes in React. Now, classes were introduced in ES6. If you're not familiar with ES6, I recommend doing a Udacity course on it. It's quite comprehensive and it's not a big investment in terms of time. And it's one of those courses, if you finish it, the lessons you learn, they stay with you for a long time. And you don't care. And this is how you write an ES6 class, and specifically for the case of React component, you make it extend React.component like so. And we want to ensure the same functionality is first accomplished before we start using state. So let's achieve that object first. And when you're working with React classes, you don't do props, you do this.props, because props are by default passed in to every single React component class object. And if my expectation serves me right, this should work. Bingo. Okay, now we are still getting the date using props. Let's move on to getting the date using state. How do we do that? Constructor, props, super props. Now, the lines of code you see on the screen right now, they are common for most React classes. Yep. Uh, so it pays to become familiar with these few lines of code. Every React class, from my experience, has a render function, has a constructor. The first line of almost every constructor that I have encountered so far uh, is a call to the superclass with the props object passed as the argument. So you might as well get familiar with it. And you don't have to spend time getting familiar with it. You get familiar with it over time. You set an initial state and you do it like so. Today, you set today to new date, and the state can in fact be an object. When we try to pass in new date as a prop, React complains saying, you can't pass me an object, you have to pass me a string. It's not going to complain in a similar way when it comes to state. State can be an object. State properties can be objects. And given that we now have state, we're going to try accessing today using state. And I don't know if this is going to work. Let's see if this works. And to make sure that we are in fact getting it from state, we remove the prop. We go back to our application, we refresh. It's whining. It still has to be converted to locale string. Beautiful. Now we essentially just used React State to display properties that belong to a particular component. The component is responsible for its own data. Now I get that you can't quite see the power of states just yet, but trust me, it will become clear very soon.